So hey everybody. So this is a quick little announcement. The video that you're about to watch is me talking about the full moon in Virgo. But for some silly reason, my brain framed it as the full moon in Pisces. So throughout this video, you're going to hear me say the full moon in Pisces, which of course it's not. So the essence of the video still stands. And as you go through this video, when you hear me say that, just laugh with me at the same time. I thought it was quite funny. And shout outs to the person who made the comments in the video because I actually released it yesterday. And somebody was like, I'm confused. What's going on here? And I was like, I'm also confused. What's going on here? So, needless to say, this is a quick little announcement to say this is a full moon in Virgo video. The essence of the video still stands. And I hope that you enjoy the content. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Raising Vibrations. And this video, we are going to be exploring the full moon in Pisces. So I've been thinking about this this full moon for quite some time, and one of the things that has been consistently emerging in my consciousness that I feel is important to highlight and bring to the surface is the reconnection of the parts of ourselves emotionally. There's parts of our identity that has been dismembered or forgotten or dislocated, right? Put away in order for us to cope or deal with the circumstances or situations or scenarios that we have had to live through when we're growing up, and also just in terms of reality itself and experiencing life. So I want to kind of explore that more, and I want to bring up some things that I think are incredibly potent with this full moon in Pisces. So before I do that, two things I just want to quickly announce. One of them is that the playlist to the ongoing series that I've been doing with all of the planets in Aquarius and Mars-Venus conjunction and Pluto and Chiron, etc., I'll put that in the comments section as well as this video so that you can follow along the thread that I've been sort of putting together for us with regards to these transits. I think that they're incredibly potent. There is a powerful shift within our consciousness at the moment, and this is the initiation of that shift, in my eyes at least. And then the second thing is the Evolutionary Astrology Immersion. I've been talking about that a little bit throughout these videos, but now I am very excited to announce that this is going to be coming out fairly soon. There is a wait list to get the information of this Evolutionary Astrology Immersion program. I'll put that in the comment section and in the description. What this is, what this is a completely new way of learning astrology. The idea is that we process reality and we learn astrology in this kind of very school educated way. So we're studying it, we're writing notes, we're seeing it, but we're not living it. And in my experience, as well as people that have experienced this immersion process and learning evolutionary astrology this way, is that there is another dimension of astrology that we're missing out on. And I want to tap into that. I want to access that, awaken that process. And what that does is it gives us the ability to live out our stories in a conscious way. It gives context to things as opposed to just labeling, oh, I've got Mars and Venus in Virgo, for instance. You actually reshape your relationship to that planetary system in your birth chart. Instead of seeing it as a 2D image, you actually have a full immersive understanding of what that story and those dilemmas are about for you, and it brings you deeper into your soul awareness. So that's going to be coming out very, very soon. I'll probably be letting us know the exact dates in a couple of videos coming out. But if you're interested in that, there is a link in the description as well as the comment section. Okay. For me, as I said, I've been thinking about the context of this this full moon, and this is me talking about it in a very raw and unedited way. And so follow along with me, and hopefully by the end of this video, we and you will have a sense of the place in you where this full moon has the potential to heal. Okay. So one of the places that this full moon speaks to and has the potential to speak to is the reconnection of our relationship to our own emotional reality, and in particular, the emotional parts of ourselves that have had to be disembodied and disassociated from, okay, in order to cope with the experiences where confusion or lack of clarity or the absence of a very clearly defined um, sort of context of a situation. So, what I'm thinking about here is that all of us, when we're being raised, will be raised in a family dynamic that will have a specific configuration. And in that specific configuration, you will have experienced certain complexes, right? Certain dilemmas, certain emotional experiences that can and have probably impacted you in a way that uh, continues to this day to have a negative experience on um, the way that you form relationships or how you trust the world or understand the world. Okay. One of the most impactful things that I think has affected us mostly, I think 80% of you that are watching this, or at least 70%, is the social context of where the the emotional connection to the mother is severed because it was the priorities and the values in the society were very much associated with the establishing a sense of identity and a value of identity in the external world, as opposed to the emotional nurturing of the children's or the child's perception of safety and security when you're young. So moms, your relationship to your mom, many of you have got good relationship to your mom, and that might be the opposite. It might be the relationship to dad. It doesn't matter. Each way, what I'm talking about here is a part of us that has felt disconnected from the nurturance or the safety of the parents' relation or the parents' boundary that has said, yes, this is what's safe, this is what's not safe, this is what's real, this is what's not real. And then most importantly, that relationship to helping you understand the world without feelings of judgment or persecution or a sense of shame, okay, and fear. You know, as we're growing up, our world is shaped deeply by the relationships that are around us. So, if, for instance, there's one dynamic where you're the middle child and you find yourself not having the attention that you maybe need because the other two children have their attention, or maybe the last child has more attention and the first child has its own dilemmas. But for you as a middle child, as an example, you may experience the lack of the validation from the parents in a way that was necessary for you to feel that you exist and are important. And that you may, as you grow older in life, you may seek that external validation subconsciously in relationships. And you may notice that when you don't get that sort of mirrored back to you, it brings up this more primal wound or this primal absence of emotional integration. And we're kind of like bound by this or bonded to this dilemma in your life. And depending on the amount of crises that have brought you to explore why that external validation is so important, will be equal to your ability to have actually ironed out that issue. And so we all have that. We all have some part of us that has, in a sense, kind of had to take a step back and uh, adjust and build a frame of reality that doesn't ignite pain. And I think that's where I'm getting to in this context here, is that this full moon in Pisces Virgo is a is a catalyst for us to address these parts of ourselves inwardly, particularly the younger version of ourselves that's internal within us, that wants to express itself in the world and through the adult and through your adult self in a way that is, in a sense, healthier. But there is these sensitivities that you have that are there because beneath that sensitivity is a unresolved complex, an unresolved emotional dilemma that needs to be resolved, that needs to be aired out, that needs to be moved through. And the range of this, the range of these experiences will be unique to each of you. Some of you have more understanding of this, some of you will be coming into it, some of you will be in between. But this planetary alignment, the Sun Moon opposition, in one way, at an emotional level, is speaking to and can speak to, let me put it to that way, can speak to parts of ourselves that still require that tenderness and the acknowledgement of what we have had to endure, what you have had to endure, and where in the environment there was an absence of the experience of God. Okay, so let me unpack what I mean when I say that, when I say the absence and the experience of God. So when we're in the parent's womb, we are in a relationship psychically with unity, okay, with a kind of primordial state of oneness. And as we get born into the world, there is a separation from that, or at least in the illusional separation, but there is a physical separation from the womb that brings you into the world of complex and dilemma and beauty and amazement, but also terror and challenge and grief. All of the emotional, the spectrum of emotions that we can experience, we sort of get born into this frequency. And so that transitional state from that unity to this sense of here I am and it feels different to the womb state, right? That space there is something that we seek to regress back to because it is the ultimate state of safety. Okay. And our limbic system, as well as our perception of experiences, often will withdraw us back to these more regressed states as a way to feel that unified experience of ultimate love, which is why things like addiction and particularly um, like narcotics, like drugs, for instance, any form, can induce that or manipulate the brain's chemistry in order to regain that state of like love, because the absence of it is so painful. So there's this kind of like error between a state of complete oneness and internal safety, and then the horror of reality and the absence of that. Okay. So that's what I mean when I say that there is and this is the Pisces Virgo axis. Okay. This is the Pisces Virgo axis. It is speaking to the way that we as human beings come into the world of imperfection, Virgo, and then we are consistently carving our experience of reality and our sense of identity as we travel this experience that we call our human life. So along the road, we're going to be experiencing things that will disconnect us or remove us from that unity state, that space of unified, yeah, as I said, goddess consciousness, etc. Right? And that's a painful thing because as we're human beings and we go through forming relationships, and then we go through the loss and the potential the loss of a relationship or the breakdown of trust in a relationship that leads to the ending of something, we go through all these emotions of grief and sadness and pain, and that can have it has a psychological effect on us that shapes our perception of what we see the world to be, which is another huge theme that encompasses this full moon in Pisces, which is the way that we encounter reality and the position that we take where we anchor ourselves emotionally, will be mirrored back to us as a way to reflect that internal state. And the Pisces Virgo experience is that constant dynamic relationship between what we see and project into the world and then what comes back to us as feedback, and the way that we then internalize that feedback. And through the valence system, which is the mechanism that says, yes, positive, I like this experience, more of it, or no, negative, and so move away from that, right? Through our sort of biological um, um, system setting that is valence, all organisms have it, we will then build a relationship towards the thing that says, yes, this is meaningful, real, and I want to move towards it, or no, this is not meaningful and real, and I want to move away from it. It elicits pain. Okay. So that dynamic tension and that dynamic relationship between the things that afford me meaning, purpose, and aliveness, and experiences that are negative and we want to withdraw from them or we want to stay away from, that guidance principle is intertwined with the way that we show up for an experience and define it for ourselves. So we can see something as an experience that's consistently negative. Oh, I lost this. This is what I got. This is what I lost out of it. And when that framing of that reality is deeply rooted in things that I have lost, or things that have happened to me, or things that I have been affected by, it can start to uh, minimize your capacity for wonder, beauty, abundance within your world, and maximize the horror of this place. And this Virgo Pisces axis is the very axis that holds and shapes our experiences of what is perfect and what is not, or what is abundant, what is not. So in the context of Mars Venus new phase in Aquarius, in the context of Mars Venus conjunct Pluto, which I've been talking about, in the context of Chiron conjunct the North Node in Aries, which is why I said it's important to watch those videos as well, so that you can have a further understanding of what that, because I'd be here for the next like 300 days if I were to go into the details of that. But those planetary alignments that are present for us right now are inviting and giving us the potential and the possibility to not only recognize these internal mechanisms and emotional anchorings that we have internalized and we have forged in within us and have set in terms of how we see the world based on these earlier experiences. This energy right now is kind of bringing that to the surface and saying, how many of these patterns would you like to take forward with you? How many of these patterns are affecting your experience of experiencing yourself and your life, as well as how many of these experiences would you like to grow beyond, or challenge them, or ask the question, is this still true for me? As I said, this is the kind of planetary system and alignment and energy that is emerging into our consciousness right now. So it is to grow beyond the current state of definitions and build new maps of meaning. So what I mean by maps of meaning is that the way that we experience the world is like a map, right? And objects and situations and circumstances, we will have a relationship towards using this valence system, and we'll say, oh, this person I like to hang out with or interact with because I have positive valence back, right? I have positive feedback back. And so therefore I map this experience as positive and abundant and I move towards it. And then say, oh, here's where I've experienced, and this is the key of this video, as well as the key for the full moon in Pisces, is here's where an experience did not give me something positive, and I carry with me pain based on this experience, and so therefore I want to avoid that completely. Okay? Now, because most of you, well, for all of you, you're adults and you're kind of, you can understand things. What I'm about to say, you have to think about. Okay, you have to think about. Yeah, you can't just take it at surface value. Is that what I'm saying here is that this energy is awakening where there are unresolved pain sensations that have come from previous experiences, particularly the way that you were raised, and where there is unresolved pain that needs to be addressed, looked at, and then worked through. Okay? At the same time that I say that, there is also the context where I'm not saying to you that if you have an unresolved pain relationship towards an abuser, that you need to go and open up that conversation or that contact with the abuser to resolve it. You want to understand more of the context of what was lost in that experience. So in that situation where there is a scenario where opening up and trying to resolve some pain dynamics that you know are not healthy for you, don't go to them. Just rather become conscious of what was lost or what have you felt in that experience that has disconnected you from the experience of oneness or lostness, right? And in this thing, it's not even about opening it up because you need to feel it because that's what it is. It's addressing and noticing what it is, what that pain and what that experience is teaching you and giving you an understanding about yourself so that it affords you new relationship boundaries and new relationship patterns towards that pain. Okay? So let's say, for instance, you were raised in an environment where um, boundaries were deeply confusing. Okay. Mom had a certain set of rules, dad had a certain set of rules, and you were in a family where one person got more attention than you. And you always felt that in the context of the family dynamic, right, you would go to dad, dad would have these certain rules, and you would interact with him a certain way because you knew what sets of rules he had and what boundaries he had, but you'd interact with mom in a completely different way. And so it would create this dilemma where two people's boundaries and definitions were different, and it was difficult to kind of regulate which ones worked and which ones don't. But at the same time, you were also maybe feeling the rejection because the rules that were applying to another kid were different to you. So it's just kind of like, what are the rules like? How do they work? And how do I define myself or the context of myself in this environment? And then more importantly, in this sense, not so much about trying to figure that out, but more as how has it shaped me? Where do I have confusion or sadness or pain related to the confusion that came out of these boundary this boundary scenario that I just put out? I have to be, in a sense, um, I have to be abstract in some way and create an imagined experience. But what I'm really trying to say is that you have to reflect on what it what patterning was in your experience and where do you have these pain responses that you avoid, right, or you deny that affects your experience of healthy interaction in the world because that pain sensation or that pain experience is unresolved, right? You need to address it, whether it be you need to work through that. And this energy right now is kind of pointing to this as a way to say there's a new way of relating to yourself, but there's also a need to understand that what you have been shaped by is what you want to be moving beyond with this Aquarius energy. And this new moon, this full moon in Virgo Pisces is bringing you into a deep experience of where that pain has been experienced, where those abductions around life have pulled you into the underworld, and that you are experiencing the loss of, I don't know, innocence, I suppose, the innocence of life. So another way to say the reconnection or the finding of the God or the pure love dynamic is, where was that innocence lost? Where has it been taken away? And how has that experience of that loss of innocence affected your psychology and your emotional perception of the world, and particularly the way that you actually feel safe and not safe within the context of life and relationships? And I keep saying it and I keep going back to it, is that these new phase planetary systems are allowing you to move beyond those experiences by seeing those experiences and then exploring what they have meant for you and how they impact you, and if there's a possibility to move beyond that. Okay? So I'm sure many of you struggle with a feeling of guilt or an unresolved guilt pattern. And you notice that you may fawn or you may disengage your authenticity and meet that unresolved guilt and say, yes, I'll act from that unresolved guilt because the pain of standing up for myself or saying no is more than sacrificing my agency and self-identity. And it's there. That's the thing that I'm trying to say. It's that the culture, the context of our environments for a very long time have held this idea that you are not allowed to have agency, that you can't have an individuated sense of self, that you must live your life through the rejection of your own pain and the amplification of sensitivity to other people's pain because that makes you a good person. And that's one narrative, that's one thread that impacts deeply our psychology and our capacity to feel true empathy, because we're acting from a state of displaced empathy, or we're acting from a place of rejection of our own pain sensation because the environment gave you negative feedback that acting the way that you are is healthy. So that's another theme that comes along with this full moon, is the ability to feel that freedom and to grow beyond where you have maybe internalized the world in a way that negatively affects you. But at the time that you were internalizing that behaviorism, it was affording you something of safety. Yeah. So when I use the word abduction and the loss of innocence here, what I'm referring to is that you are just doing your thing, you're being yourself, and then this experience comes along that shapes your perception of the world, that affords you a negative thing. It's like, wow, I did this and now I'm being shamed for this, but I don't really understand why, right? And it might be at the time the way that you were told about what the world was and what was right and what was wrong, these moral kind of dilemmas that we as children don't come into the world with. We don't have a compass of what the moral code of reality is and what it means to be human. So we're conditioned by that. We're conditioned by the set of values that we are raised within. And those value systems and those moral dilemmas and those rules and regulations have an emotional impact on you. As an adult, you can kind of say, yeah, that was not right for me, but you still might carry the emotional residue of that sensation and pain or feeling of lack of power. And this energy right now is awakening the possibility and the potential to have reclaimed that power. But in order to reclaim that power and to come back into its state, you have to move towards it through the experience that you had, right? You have to go through that experience and not in a sense like actually have to go through it, but you have to move through those emotions and process them and put them into the places that they belong and integrate them in a healthy way. And that can be moving through grief. So this planetary alignment over here can promote the surface of pain and the need to address the grief that is associated with that experience. And then for the liberation from that. It could be in another way, and this is where I see this energy in such a positive way as well, is that this energy is working towards the purification of these emotional dilemmas that we carry within us, so that we're freer emotionally from the bondage of these traps, these PTSD experiences, or these trauma dynamics, or the places within us that we can't tap into a deeper state of abundance or a deeper state of feeling a richness, an emotional richness. Because oftentimes the emotional spectrum of how we can experience the range of feelings and emotions have been, in a sense, impacted and have dislocated your capacity to feel that flow and that fluidity and your ability to regulate those feelings in a healthy way. And so it comes out displaced. And oftentimes they materialize as projections. I mean, for all of us, we experience that. We project into the world a set of dynamics that we want ideally to have, and then the reality mirrors back to us what it really is, and the error between what we predict and ideally want versus what there is can oftentimes be incredibly painful to experience. So this energy right now is absolutely stirring that experience up. In fact, there is a model of reality that's being used at the moment and explored at the moment that's called predictive processing, and the Bayesian brain model, which speaks to the way that the body actually processes reality. And what was really fascinating, and just kind of going for a tangent over here, what was really fascinating is that if you, for say, for instance, a week, start to notice the things that you do actually have within your life that are supportive, that are beneficial, that are that you can be grateful for, you'll actually start to notice that you attune your consciousness and your brain to start picking up where gratitude and where abundance and where positive like things exist, and it starts reinforcing that. And so one of the ways that you can actually come into alignment with this full moon in Pisces video and experience is sorting through where these chiron, Aquarius energy patterns want you to grow beyond, want you to step into a new way of responding, want you to address where those sensitivities and those pain responses are, and address them, and then sort of clear them out, or at least resolve them, or try to resolve them, or put them in a place and accept that this is not going to be resolved in this lifetime, because in a scenario, mom and dad maybe are not there, or the betrayal of a good friend no longer can be interacted with, and so there's part of that experience you just have to accept. And then moving beyond that, and then moving into a state of attuning your perception to notice the things that are good in your existence, and writing that down and saying, today, this is what I'm grateful for. This is what is working for me. This is what my experience is like, through just, as I said, like listing things that are really supportive, that you're grateful for, that you're abundant for, and do that for a week. And watch what happens when you attune your brain to start predicting experiences and scenarios that are in alignment with these things that are actually supportive for you. And it awakens an emotional field within yourself that actually gives you more motivation to actually invest in things that you do actually want. Because ultimately, the highest ideal with the Virgo Pisces axis is the capacity to awaken the dream within you. And so, how do you awaken that dream within you? There are certain levels that you need to go through. Of course, one of them is not to be consistently dragged down by patterns of emotions that have consistently reinforced to you that you've lost something, which this is the opposite. This is the polarity of this energy. So the summary here with regards to the transit, I'm just going to put up the new moon energy here, just to kind of show you what I'm talking about. Okay, this is the astrology of this conversation today. So Mars, Venus, Pluto, new phase energy. Okay, and this is a energy pattern that holds the space and emerges into our consciousness that says, let's decentralize ourselves away from patterns of emotional context that no longer work for us moving forward. Right? That's the voice that comes out of that planetary system. The tension square all the way to Jupiter Uranus is to awaken the deeply embedded belief systems and truths that no longer serve our future-oriented self, and that we want to work through where those emotional patterns and complexes have been embedded into our emotional field and our physical field. That's the Taurus energy there, and to break those apart and move beyond them. So that's the square, right? That's where that energy is like an earthquake awakening something that has been laying dormant to the surface, and it erupts. And then the new phase is, can we respond to that in a new way? The Chiron North Node Aries energy is new ways of responding, but also recognizing that part of those new ways of responding is noticing where that wound has been present with us. And that speaks to where that loss of identity, that loss of power, that loss of capacity to know your agency in that space. And so suffering, right? The loss of suffering or the loss of agency equates suffering. If I lose that agency and I can't do it, then I'm stuck in that suffering cycle and I don't see my own capacity to affect my reality. Okay, so it's a new interaction, a new response, a new way of being. But part of that is being sensitive to where the wounding may stop you from doing that. Okay. Now we've got Sun entering Pisces with this opposition, and this energy just holds the space for, hey, now it's time for you to come into a deeply sacred space and relationship with this pain, with this suffering, and allow yourself the space to compassionately address this, while at the same time also bringing to light your ability to feel more attuned or aligned with positive ways of addressing these pain points that you carry within you, and seeing that you can grow beyond them, seeing that you can change that, seeing that you can address that wound. So if you're in the state of addressing the wound, then you have agency. If you're in the state of, oh, well, this is how the world is, and I'm always going to experience this type of stuff, you're in the state of absence of suffering. You're in that state of suffering, you're in the state of absence of agency, and you're still in that grief pattern. So this is a video to awaken the realization that you need to acknowledge that first, and then slowly move towards reclaiming that agency by understanding the context of why that could have taken place. And it could have been, in your case, as an example, or let's just use me as an example, right? It was the relationship to the mother and the loss of that feeling of nurturing and care and sensitivity that afforded me the ability to have that absent within myself. And now I can say, well, the world is full of people that just don't care. Or the world is full of people that just are inconsiderate. Or that the world are the people that don't actually consider my feelings as well in this scenario. Okay? And so therefore that echoes into the language structure and into my relationships and into my world. And that's where that suffering is, because I don't have that agency. I can't change that. But this energy is like, oh, okay, I'll regress back to that place. I'll feel that the things that I really needed at that point in time were there for me, that weren't there for me, and I need it. And so therefore I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to go and see if there needs to be a conversation. I need to maybe read some literature on understanding what these dynamics are. And then I need to do maybe some rituals that allows me to see that there is actually abundance in my life that can help me move through these things or not. And that is the core of this message. Okay. All right. So for those of you that want to learn Evolutionary Astrology in an immersive way, I'm going to be sharing some more information on that. There is a link in the description as well as the comment section. We're going to be completely changing the way and the outlook of how you understand the astrology symbols and charts. You're going to go through a deeply lived experience and awaken yourself so that you actually see astrology in a completely different way. And that's my mission. And for those of you that are interested in that and wanting to learn that, then like I said, there is a link in the description to the waitlist, and I'll be sharing some information to you so you can learn more about it. Okay. Other than that, have an amazing weekend, and I'll see you guys in another video. Bye-bye.